Hi, and welcome back to the Scout Sew Along. Today is day 4, and in this lesson we'll finally begin sewing as we assemble the body of the shirt. So grab your cut pieces, get your sewing machine turned on, and let's sew. As we mentioned in the second video in this series, the 0 to 18 Scout does not have a dart, while the 14 to 30 does. So I'll first show you how to sew up the dart of the 14 to 30. You'll notice that there's a cutout in the dart here. We've removed the dart take-up from this dart. In case you're not familiar with that term, dart take-up is a piece of fabric that's taken up into the dart. The way you sew this dart is essentially the same as any other dart. You can pretend that this is filled in if that helps you, but you'll see how easy it is right now. So here you can see we have our bust point marked. All we're going to do is fold the shirt down, wrong sides together. We're going to pin along this cut edge. And take that marking pin out. And so here are our dart leg notches. Hopefully you can see those. So we're going to sew from the dart leg notches to the dart point, just like we would for any other dart. The only difference is we're missing a triangle right here. Everything else is the same. If you want to mark in a line from the dart leg notches to the dart point to follow, that's fine, but you're just doing a straight line from here to here. The cut edge is going to fall a 1/2 inch from the seam line that you're sewing for the dart, but here as we near the tip, that will reduce. So I'll show you now on the machine. Okay, so here we are at the machine. We have our dart leg notch. I'm going to lower our presser foot. And I do like to just do a small back tack there. And you can see here's the cut edge, and this is a 1/2 inch away from the cut edge. And this is what we're aiming for right here. Remove that pin. And you'll see here the cut edge ends, and as we angle towards the dart point, this will no longer be a 1/2 inch. So trim that. And here you can see what your dart looks like. So the dart point, and again, we just have that triangle removed just to reduce bulk. So now you're going to want to finish this seam allowance. I'm just going to serge across mine, but you can do whatever you prefer. I would say don't bind this. It's going to be too bulky, so either a zigzag, an overlocker stitch on your machine, or an actual serger. And you're not cutting anything off at this point, we're just finishing the edge. Now you see I keep my stitching line even with this notch on my machine. You don't want to cut into the stitching line. So you can see I've only finished the raw part of the dart. So I'm going to leave this nice tail, and we are going to finish the edge here. Okay, now to finish the edge of the dart so that the serging doesn't come out, I clip my threads, thread it through a needle. It's a large-eyed needle, it's dull. Then we're just going to bring the tail through. Hold on, sorry. Bring the tail through the stitching so it's anchored, and then I like to go back a few stitches and bring it back through so that way it's anchored. This is hard to do while you're looking at a video and not the actual fabric. So now our thread tail is anchored, it's not going to come out, so we can go over to our iron and press. So now when I'm pressing a dart, I always like to press it over my ham. Since we're creating a curve in the fabric, it's best if you press it over a curve. We want the dart take up to fall towards the hem. So we're going to make sure that's angled downwards. And then we're just going to give it a press. All right, so here you can see our dart is pressed towards the hem. Looks nice. We don't have puckering at the tip. So there's one last thing we're going to do, and that is to secure this edge here so that when you're sewing the side seam, it doesn't flip around. So we're just going to head over to the machine and we're going to sew within the seam allowance just to keep that in place. Okay, so I'm just going to stitch 1/4 inch away. And there we have it anchored, so it's not going to go anywhere while we do our next step. All right, the next thing we're going to do is sew up our side seams and our shoulder seams. So to do that, you're going to need your front and your back. Lay your back out with the right side facing up, and then take your front and lay it right side facing down on top of the back. I then go ahead and pin the side seams. This is kind of a crinkly fabric, so then we're going to do the shoulder. When you pin the shoulder, you'll need to ease the back into the front slightly. So just align the two ends and then place a pin between. And what that does is it gives room for the curve of your back shoulder. Because if you look at your shoulders, the front is concave and the back is convex. So that just helps that lay a little nicer. And then one more side seam. And I always do the two ends. And then I work centers out. That way everything is nicely aligned and even. Okay, so now everything's pinned. We're going to head over to our machine and we're going to sew along the side seams and both shoulders. All right, so here we are at the machine. I'm going to align my first side seam. Do a small back tack. And then just sew the length of the seam. Now you can clip your thread here, or what I like to do is just angle my fabric right into my next seam. If you're a quilter, you're familiar with this. This is called chaining. It just uses a little less thread and it's a little quicker. Get my pins out of the way. Onto the next shoulder, and you can see, you probably didn't even notice me easing that in at the shoulder. It's just so little, but it really does help it sit. Sits better at your shoulder. Another back tack. And the final side seam. Lift your needle, and then you'll have all your ends stuck together like that. So all you have to do to free them is just clip, 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 and then trim your final threads. So now once again, we're going to want to finish these edges. So I'm going to use my serger. You can use a serger, again, an overlocker. If you're using a really lightweight fabric, you could French seam, but if this is your first garment, don't worry about that. Just use a zigzag on your machine. All right, here I am back at my serger. I am going to finish my edges. I just have, again, the seam line aligned with this little notch on my foot. And it does cut off a tiny bit. Just neatens those edges right up. I'm going to do the same technique where I just feed the next seam allowance in. And with the serger, you don't need to reach around the back and always lift up the presser foot. You can just lift the front like I'm doing of the foot. All right, and then that's finished. You're again going to need to trim your pieces apart. Oops, I missed one thread. And then we're going to need to press these seams. So let's head over to the iron. So the first thing we're going to do is press our shoulder seams. We're going to press the seam allowance towards the back of the garment. And I find this easiest to do over a sleeve roll. So you're going to insert that. Give that a nice press, and then move over to the next shoulder. After that, we're going to press the side seams, and those will also press towards the back of the garment. Now to press the side seam, you're going to put it over the edge of your ironing board like so. Again, seam allowances go towards the back. Press. And then just rotate over to the other side seam. Seam allowance towards the back. So here's our garment inside out. You can see the front neckline. The shoulder seam allowances are going towards the back of the garment. And on the side, the seam allowances are also going towards the back of the garment. All right, so that's it for today's lesson. The body is assembled, and in our next video, I'll be showing you how to attach the bias facing to the neckline, as well as how to hem the shirt. After that, it's just sleeves and we're done. I really love how quickly the scout comes together. As always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you don't miss any of our video updates. I'll see you back here next time. Bye-bye.